So, good morning, committee, April 8th. We're a little bit late. We're waiting for some printing to get done in regards to H81 that we're gonna be dealing with, this morning. And we have Rick with us, from the council that will run through the bills, so why don't we introduce ourselves and, get started?
Yes, Brian Collmore, representing the Rutland County District.
Irene Renner, Chittenden North, including Fairfax.
Brian Campion, Bennington County. Rich Western, Wyant.
And Bobby Starr from Orleans County. So welcome, Rick, and we'll let you get started. Right, and everyone's got their draft, and as Rick goes along, if you have questions, we probably ought to ask them as we get to them.
Sorry, thanks.
So, we'll turn it over to you.
All right, good morning. Rick Sagel, Office of Legislative Counsel. Should have, I'm sharing my screen too, so if you need to see it in a different way, it's up on the screen. Version 2.1. Dated 8/24 this morning. It happens sometimes. So, Mr. Chair, how much time do I have? Because some of the things the committee, last time I did a walkthrough, the findings, there weren't too many questions. I can kind of highlight maybe at least in the finding section, some final points of discussion, or you may read the whole thing. The finding section.
I don't think it's necessary to read the whole thing, or would the committee prefer that, because, we have until 10 o'clock,
Because I think there may be some things that may take a while to discuss. So I think, if you don't mind, you're all welcome to read, of course. But on page 1, there's nothing. Last time I walked through, no changes on page 1. Page 2, also no change on page 2, based on draft 1.2, which is what I walked through last time. Page 3. Yeah. Page 3. Make sure. Yellow highlights, which we'll start seeing on page 5.
we don't have any colored,
There's no color.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can't see.
At all.
Oh,
No.
At some point it gets.
There's shadow,
grayscale.
there's
Okay.
gray shadow.
I'll highlight what
Starting on page 6.
it'll be color on the screen too, so you'll be able to see what's colored there. There were some changes in the findings that I went through last time that the committee, in my notes, had no real disagreements with. So those findings are staying as is. Again, I don't think there's even. The one thing I think we may want to look at is on page 4 of findings.
why don't we go through that in a little depth, because
Yeah.
our guests are going to mistake what the heck we are, if we don't, so,
Okay, appreciate that.
yeah.
Sure. Why don't I start with the top then?
Yeah,
Okay. Findings, so page 1, the Vermont food, agriculture, forest sectors are significant components of the state's economy, its rural heritage, and its identity as a state. According to the Working Lands Enterprise Initiative, about 20% of Vermont's land is used for agriculture, while 78% is forested. In surveys conducted by the initiative, over 97% of Vermonters expressed that they value the working landscape. The 2023 U.S. Food and Agricultural Industries and Economic Impact Study found that food and agriculture industries in Vermont were associated with nearly 104,000 jobs, 5.2 billion in wages, and 19.3 billion in economic output. The Vermont Sustainable Jobs Fund estimates that Vermont's forest products industry generates an annual economic output of 1.4 billion and supports 10,500 jobs. Agricultural and forestry activity varies by season, is weather dependent, and is heavily reliant on having access to increasingly sophisticated agricultural and forestry equipment. Vermont farmers and foresters' access to safe and reliable equipment is essential to timely planting, cultivating, tilling, and harvesting of produce, protein, grain, timber, and other wood forest products. The pandemic further highlighted the increased and ongoing need for functional agricultural and forestry equipment as individuals in Vermont increasingly rely on the equipment to guarantee access to food and wood products during periods of supply chain disruption, raw material and commodity shortages, and heightened food insecurity. Authorized repair providers are important Vermont businesses that play a critical role for farmers and foresters by offering access to diagnosis, maintenance, and repair services for equipment. In general, original equipment manufacturers and authorized repair providers are able to provide independent repair providers and owners with adequate access to necessary parts or, I'm just going to shorten that to equipment from here on out. However, in order to maintain complex safety and emission systems, limitations on software-related repairs implemented by OEMs have led to frustration for some customers. Due to workforce and geographic constraints, authorized repair providers are not always able to meet demand for timely diagnosis, maintenance, and repair services to farmers and foresters in the state. As for many Vermont employers, critical workforce shortages prevent authorized repair providers from operating at full staff capacity, which can contribute to costly delays in performing diagnosis, maintenance, and repair. The need for more accessible and affordable repair options is felt more acutely among specific sectors of the population, notably Vermont residents in more rural and remote areas. OEM shops and authorized repair providers are sometimes not located close to owners or independent shops, which may require owners or independent shops to travel long distances for repair or to be without functioning agriculture or to equip for longer periods of time. Many owners are capable of performing their own diagnosis, maintenance, and repair services for their equipment. Independent repair providers play a vital role in Vermont's economy, providing access to information, parts and diagnostic and repair tools is essential in contributing to a competitive repair market and allowing independent repair shops employees to fix equipment safely. Extending the useful life and efficient operation of equipment may provide additional benefits for farmers, foresters, and the environment. Computerized components of modern agricultural and forestry equipment include precious metals that are finite. Emissions of agricultural and forestry equipment are better regulated, limited by functional software and hardware computer elements, thereby increasing the need for access to timely and effective repairs to ensure optimal functionality that is within the confines of federal regulatory limitations and existing technology needed to preserve intellectual property. Broader distribution of the information tools and parts necessary to repair this equipment may shorten repair times, lengthen the useful lives of the equipment, lower costs for users, and benefit the environment. Okay, now we have purpose. The purpose of the act is to ensure equitable access to the parts, tools, and documentation that are necessary for independent repair providers and owners to perform timely repair of agricultural and forestry equipment in a safe, secure, reliable, and sustainable manner. The short title is the fair repair. Okay, can I continue?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Any question?
Yeah, I just was wondering, do you want feedback now on things like the findings? Or do you want to wait till the end?
No.
I was just curious, like, in number 5, we're talking about, necessary parts and things like that. I mean, in order to maintain safety and emission systems, there are some limitations on repairs, but I think, it's also in order to maintain competitive advantage, isn't it? I mean, OEMs have proprietary software and stuff, so they want to maintain their competitive advantage, and I don't see that mentioned anywhere, and I think that's important. It's not just about safety and emissions. There's some onus on owners for admitting, hey, you know, the reason we haven't given this information out freely before is we want to keep our competitive advantage.
that is not the bill.
Right, and I think it's important that we acknowledge that. I mean, it's not just about safety and emissions.
And I thought we heard on the field trip that millions of dollars worth of parts sitting on the shelf and that they've been offering these diagnostic equipment for quite some. I thought we've heard that.
Right, but the findings are just a statement of the landscape, and I think the competitive landscape is such that the reason we haven't seen wide distribution in a legitimate way, I mean, obviously there's always Chinese software diagram or something out there on that web, but I think one of the findings we might want to mention is that for competitive advantage, we have not seen the vendors providing this information freely as they might have until a bill like this came along. Because competitive advantage is just a thing in the economy, right? In a capitalist society, that's one of the ways you differentiate yourself, is putting forth something that's different than everybody else. And competitive advantage, I think, should be among the findings of things that are reasons.
I don't know.
Yeah, so-
That's accurate, though.
What I can remember when we toured the John Deere dealership was they admitted that they can't possibly do all the work themselves.
I'm not arguing
And
with
that
that.
they were happy to have the independent folks kind of take on some of that burden, that they didn't have enough workforce to do it.
Absolutely.
So I'm not sure that,
I mean, that goes back though during and prior to the pandemic. I thought we heard it. And since the pandemic, it's even gotten worse because the people aren't there. So
Well, this isn't talking about, that end of it, more like this finding of why these haven't been available before. I agree that they have not given out the information because they were afraid people would monkey with admissions or monkey with things that keep them safe, or monkey with things that would give up their competitive advantage. And I just think that's one of the maybe things to list in this series of reasons why us have hesitated in the past
Right.
before coming with this information in a way that they could. Just a thought.
Maybe something to consider is later, the bill does talk about intellectual property. And,
we do have that.
But it's a
It's
finding,
not
it's a
worded-
fact,
yeah,
right?
it's
I mean,
not
a fact.
worded
I think we
as-
should put that up front too, if we're gonna deal with it later.
yeah, the committee obviously can, discuss what they want the findings. And the intellectual property is not labeled as a competitive advantage, however, like, that's why we have the patent system, that's why we have these things that allow. But yeah, if you want to spell out, this is, a competitive advantage, then this would be a place to do it.
I mean, we have emissions rules too, but we're still talking about them here.
In most bills, you get a paragraph of findings, you don't get 5 pages.
Well, this one you have to, because it's kind of the whole thing. I mean, now we paid it, we got four, right?
Whoever the sponsor was wanted to
Yeah.
be important.
Fair enough. So,
If you get a lot of findings, it's more important. But
I
anyway,
I have one more, so if my members.
The house.
okay.
The House bill. In number 6, on page 3, we talk about workforce and geographic constraints, which are completely legitimate, but the other constraint in meeting demand is the seasonal. Man, for lack of a better word, for repairs, right? I mean, it's not just that they don't have enough workforce or that there's a distance between the dealers and people. It's that come July, when everyone's trying to hay, more things break down because more of these pieces of equipment are on the field and in use. So I think we should mention something about seasonal demand being a driver of or hindrance to timely diagnosis, maintenance, or
In number 6,
yeah, number 6. It's, again, I want to be complete in our findings, and we're going to talk about why they can't meet the demand always.
seasonal work code.
There you go.
Member workforce, seasonal workload, and geographic.
That works for me.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks. That's it. Sorry. Hold it up.
Then we have the definitions on your page 5, section 3 of the bill.
Rick, can I?
Yep.
Page 5, line 7. And forgive me for looking ahead, but I noticed on page 6, you have changed principally solely. And I would suggest if you're gonna use that, to change principally on line 7 to solely.
So that was one of my, things I was gonna bring up to the committee.
okay.
'Cause, yeah, so we're right here, right? So, subdivision 1, agricultural equipment. This is important, right? Because this is gonna be the equipment that has this right to repair. It means a device, part of a device, or an attachment to a device designed to be used principally off-road for an agricultural purpose, including a tractor, trailer, or combine, implements for tillage, planting, or cultivation, and other equipment principally associated with livestock, crop production, horticulture, or floriculture. So there was a request to change principally to solely, and Mr. Chair, if you want to discuss.
We See, a tractor principally is pretty much you're off the road.
Correct.
And if we put solely in there, it would be totally off the
Could be
road.
on the road.
And if, with principally, you can be, off or on, and when you're, say, doing manure or corn, you travel on the road or something, so Rick and I talked about that earlier, and he felt that principally should be in there, because they are off on the road sometimes.
Yeah.
But principally, they're off the road.
Like when you're traveling from field to field, you're
Right.
saying,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
fields aren't connected?
Sounds good.
Uh,
Solely is just very limiting, and that's, and you can do that. It's just, there could be a disagreement about, well, this equipment is not solely used as for agriculture, so
Okay.
that was my recommendation.
No, that's, I thought it was a logical. uh,
All right, then we have two A, an authorized repair provider means an individual or business that has an arrangement with the original equipment manufacturer under which the original equipment manufacturer grants to the individual or business a license to use trade name, service mark, or other proprietary identifier for the purposes of offering the service of diagnosis, maintenance, or repair of equipment under the name of the original equipment manufacturer or other arrangement with the original manufacturer to offer such services on behalf of the original equipment manufacturer. No changes there from the last version, but.
Yeah.
Okay, two B, an OEM, I'm gonna save myself time, that offers the services of diagnosis, maintenance, or repair of its own equipment, and that does not have an arrangement described in that previous subdivision with an unaffiliated individual or business shall be considered an authorized repair provider with respect to such equipment. Okay, documentation means any manual, diagram, reporting output, service code description, schematic diagram, security code, password, or other guidance or information, whether in an electronic or tangible format, to perform the services of diagnosis, maintenance, or repair of agricultural or forestry equipment. The previous version had a suggestion that we add that is necessary to perform the services of diagnosis instead of just to perform or just we can discuss that if the committee wants.
Legally, is there a difference?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you add the word necessary in there, then the owner or independent provider would have to make clear that this is necessary. I can't do this unless I have this documentation. And the manufacturer would have to be satisfied that, yeah, this is necessary. They could say that, no, this is not necessary. You don't need this, this documentation to fix your problem. So just getting in it adds more,
Yep.
it makes it more difficult for the owner or independent provider to possibly diagnose their issue if you add necessary.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, thank you.
Subdivision 4, forestry equipment means non-municipal equipment, implements, accessories, and contrivances used directly, and here there is solely off-road in harvesting timber or for on-site processing of wood forest products necessary to and associated with a logging operation. And Mr. Chair, if you want.
Yeah, logging, skidders, tree fall and bunch of, you don't run them on the road, so that's why that's there. Just logging.
Sense. Okay, 5, independent repair provider. Some changes here that we'll go over. Means a person operating in a state that does not have an arrangement described in section 2 of the section with an OEM, and that is engaged in the services of diagnosis, maintenance, repair of agricultural or forestry equipment. The last version had a suggestion that we add with a physical retail or business location in the state. And the committee discussed that, and my notes have it that you wanted to just go back to the original version of the bill, which was just operating in the state. If you add in a physical location, as I said last time, if you had a New Hampshire shop and you live in southern Vermont, that New Hampshire shop would not automatically, under this bill, get what they need to repair your equipment. So that's 6, I corrected my misspelling. I had method of understanding, now it's memorandum of understanding, no other changes there, even though it's all highlighted as change method of memorandum.
Yep.
On 7, OEM, no changes, means a person engaged in the business of selling, leasing, or otherwise supplying new agricultural or forestry equipment manufactured by or on behalf of itself to an individual business. Owner means an individual or business that owns or leases equipment used in the state. So again, the committee considered getting rid of or leases, and I had my notes, the committee decided to add back or leases.
Yeah, a lot of people reached. Yeah,
Then we have parts, no changes there, but I'll read it. Means any replacement part, either you or used, made available by an OEM for purposes of effecting the services of maintenance or repair of equipment manufactured by on our behalf, sold, or otherwise supplied by the OEM. Repair. No changes here. I think I ran out of time for highlighting changes. Repair means to maintain, diagnose, or fix equipment resulting in the equipment being returned to its original equipment manufacturer specifications. Repair does not include the ability to reset an immobilizer system or security related electronic modules, modify from OEM specifications, the embedded software or code, changing the equipment or engine settings that negatively affect emissions or safety compliance, download or access the source code of any embedded software or code. Okay, page 8. Tools means any, and I left some, I don't think we debated this one, so I left it open for discussion. Tools means any software program, hardware implement, or other apparatus used for diagnosis, maintenance, or repair of equipment, including software or other mechanisms that are, and you can see what we previously had in the bill that passed the House. And that there's suggestion that is removed.
Yeah.
And required to adding, restore the product to its original manufacturer specifications, including the updates.
we agree. with that.
You're okay with these changes, okay? 12, trade secret has the same meaning as provided in 18 U.S.C. 1839. I mentioned last time it's federal statute. We had the VSA, it's very similar, so.
Yeah.
I see no reason to go back to our version. Okay, 4052, availability of parts, tools, and documentation. Duty to make available parts, tools, and documentation. An OEM shall offer for sale or otherwise make available to an independent repair provider or owner the parts, tools, and documentation for diagnosis or repair. You can see what the previous language was.
Yep.
Okay, that's all good?
Yeah.
If agricultural or forestry equipment includes an electronic security lock or other security related function that must be unlocked, and we're adding enabled, or a suggestion there, or disabled to perform diagnosis, maintenance, or repair of the equipment, an OEM may require ... A secured authorization on page 9 process in order to prevent access to the source code or infringement of intellectual property and software or hardware owned by the OEM or licensed to the OEM by a third party and subject to terms of use. This is kind of the.
So I have a question on the prior bullet, if I may. We seem to have lost that reasonable cost word that we had before. Here, number 1, I guess it is, shall offer for sale, like, so we don't have price gouging going on, since they are the only person who could sell that software license or diagram or something. So number 1, it says an original equipment manufacturer shall offer for sale. Didn't we have something about a reasonable cost or?
That comes later, I believe.
Oh, just,
Yeah.
okay,
But
all right,
keep a pin in that. That, yes,
All right.
that is
Thank you.
addressed.
appreciate that.
Okay, any other questions about subdivision 2? Okay, no, so those changes are accepted. 3, an OEM may satisfy its obligation to make parts, tools, and documentation available to an independent repair provider or owner through an authorized repair provider that consents to sell or make available parts, tools, documentation on behalf of the manufacturer. So just adding that phrase there.
Yeah.
Okay. B, terms, limitations. no changes here, but under the terms governing the saleable provision of parts, tools, and documentation, an OEM shall not impose on an independent repair provider or owner an additional cost or burden that is not reasonably necessary within the ordinary course of business or is designed to be an impediment on the independent repair provider or owner, including a substantial obligation to use or a restriction on the use of the parts, tools, documentation necessary to diagnose, maintain, or repair equipment. 2, a condition that the independent repair provider or owner become an authorized repair provider of the OEM. Or there's suggestion that 3 be removed. An additional burden or material change that adversely affects timeliness or method of delivering parts, tools, or documentation. What's the thought on removing subdivision 3?
What do we lose there?
You have a question, Mike?
Yeah, sorry, I'm curious what we've given up by crossing the original number 3 out.
The requirement that a part, tool, or documentation be registered or paired with or approved by the OEM. That's pretty technical on my end legally. I don't know, that may not be a big legal thing, but as far as in reality, I don't know. That would be up to someone who knows more about the equipment.
Yeah, it was, I felt that it was kind of out of, a lawyer can't understand it.
Well, come on.
He's new.
I'm new, yeah.
We'll cut
I'm
him.
new to Vermont too, you know, but I mean, this is doing something, right? I just don't know, it's very technical, of what this type of pairing with, why the manufacturer would be hesitant, that would be up to discuss with the manufacturer, yeah.
And the way I see it too is the health outlay will load this back in anyway, so, you know, you've got to give them something that they don't.
Right.
More than one way to skin a cat. Yeah. So 3, no change?
No change, no change to cost limitations. This is Senator Renner, where you referred earlier about the reasonable costs. An OEM shall offer for sale or otherwise make available parts, tools, documentation to an independent repair provider or owner at a cost that is fair to both parties, considering the agreed upon conditions, promised quality, timeliness delivery, and that does not discourage or disincentivize repair to be made by an owner or independent repair provider.
That takes care.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, AG enforcement, there was a subdivision A, there was a request to remove that. Mr. Chair, if you want to address that, but that was in the bill. A person who provides, this is your private right of action. A person that violates the provisions of this chapter, commits an unfair and deceptive act in trade and commerce in violation of section 2453 of this title. The AG has the same authority to make rules, conduct civil investigations, enter into assurances of discontinuance, and bring civil actions as provided. So basically, either a owner, independent shop can sue the manufacturer for not following the act, or the AG's office can pursue that on your behalf if they want to. But this gives you the option. The AG shall be notified in writing by the OEM not later than 30 days after a method of understanding expires or has been terminated, withdrawn, or canceled by an OEM subject to this chapter.
Could, maybe you change that to memorandum,
Did I do it again? I did. I ran out of time, so
line 21 on
Yeah.
page 10.
thank you.
You got it again?
Yeah, but no, see, it's fixed already. 4054, application limitations. This chapter does not require an OEM to divulge a trade secret or to an owner or an independent service provider. It should be repair provider, shouldn't it? All of a sudden, call them service provider. You guys, are you okay with that? That's a repair provider? Okay.
Yeah.
This chapter does not alter the terms of any arrangement described in subdivision 42A enforced between an authorized repair provider and an OEM, including the performance or provision of a warranty or recall repair work by an authorized repair provider on behalf of an OEM pursuant to such arrangement, except that any provision governing such an arrangement that purports to waive, avoid, restrict, or limit the OEM's obligations to comply with this chapter is void and unenforceable. C, an independent repair provider or owner shall not, one, modify agricultural or forestry equipment to deactivate safety notification systems. And you see there's a request to remove that second part. Everyone okay with that out?
Yeah.
Three, yes, two. Access any function of a tool that enables the independent repair provider or owner to change the settings for a piece of agricultural or forestry equipment in a manner that brings the equipment out of compliance with the original manufacturer specifications or any applicable federal, state, should be lowercase because of any state, or local state emission laws. And again, we're suggesting to remove the exceptions necessary. Okay with that?
Yeah, I'm just curious that we're cutting this out. I thought this whole thing was about diagnosing, maintaining, and repairing stuff. And, you know, if the seatbelt's in the way, you might have to undo it or something. It just seems extreme to me to say that you can't deactivate a safety latch temporarily to get something else, because we all know how crowded these, like under my car hood, there's all kinds of stuff in the way of the oil filter or something. And you might need to deactivate something in order to get to it. I guess I would prefer to keep the original language in, because we don't know, as people who don't repair stuff necessarily, what might have to be disengaged, deactivated, wherever the word you like, in order to diagnose, maintain, or repair the stuff. I just think that you call something a safety notification system, and then bing, you can't do it, can't repair it, and it negates the whole bill for the owner of the equipment.
Well, this is this setting it up so that you could bypass whatever, or just, you know, we heard about some outfit that disengaged safety equipment
Right.
and this guy got run over and,
That's right.
and,
Yeah.
never was able to go back to work.
Yeah.
And,
I do remember that.
and that's just a little bit why that seems.
Well, you can't fix stupid, right? And the point is, you have to, like, if you're not gonna wear your seatbelt, I mean, that's a safety system that gets deactivated by some people, or not activated, and that's a person's choice. But in order to fix something, if you have to deactivate something under the hood, or you have to unhook the emissions thing, get at something else, it doesn't mean you're gonna leave it unhooked, but you may need to do that just because of the way these engines are put together. And I just
Maybe we
don't know
could
that we can say
put
that.
some words in
Yeah.
there to allow for that.
I think you could say except as necessary. Temporary.
Yeah, I'd like to I like temporary.
Yeah.
I can maybe discuss that particular point.
Yep, we got only a page or so left, so I am,
Is that, I think there's some clarification that would be helpful on that.
yeah, so we'll put a question mark by that.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Well,
Okay, so-
we're really giving in to you today for some.
Wow. No, I mean, there was a lot of changes in this bill, and I wanna make sure we're doing our due diligence, so,
No.
sorry.
That's.
I know a lot of farmers, I'm in a rural district, right? I'm gonna hear it.
Yeah.
All right, so 3, 1, 2, we'll put a pin in that, and then 3, obtain or use parts, tools, documentation to evade or violate emissions, copyright, trademark, or patent laws, or to engage in any other illegal activity. That was from the House version. D, OEM manufacturers and authorized repair providers are not liable for faulty or otherwise improper repairs completed by independent repair providers or owners, including repairs that cause damage to agricultural and forestry equipment that occurs during such repairs, and an inability to use or the reduced functionality of agricultural or forestry equipment resulting from the faulty or otherwise improper repair. In the event that federal law preempts part of this activity regulated by the chapter shall be construed to regulate activities that has not been preempted. F, this chapter shall not apply to an OEM that has entered into a memorandum of understanding, I got it right that time, that substantially incorporates the provisions of this chapter. In the event that a memorandum of understanding expires or is terminated, withdrawn, or canceled by an OEM, The OEM shall be required to comply with all provisions of the chapter no later than 30 days upon such termination, withdrawal, cancellation, or expiration. This chapter shall apply immediately in the event that a memorandum of understanding is not honored by an original equipment manufacturer
How are we defining immediately?
immediately. Yeah, it would
The end of
be,
today?
yeah, it would be
Within
so.
24 hours?
It would be immediately if your tractor breaks down May 1st and the MOU is pulled on May 2nd. That if it's a John Deere tractor, right, and you have an MOU with John Deere and John Deere pulls the MOU for whatever reason, May 2nd would be this bill
You'd be.
would have to be applied to the John
Having
Deere.
that break on May first, you'd assume the unit.
Okay.
But we had, I think there was a number of days in there or something, and that was gonna make it. Hell, they might not call for a month and say this is over,
Right.
and you would be running along thinking you were under the MOU. And, something breaks and
Yeah, okay.
so Rick suggested immediate, and I sort of agreed to that because you should be notified.
Yeah.
Irene.
So if that can be immediate, how about the sentence beforehand? Why is there a 30-day buffer zone?
Where's that?
Says in the event that the MOU expires or is terminated, the OEM shall be required to comply with the law. Like within 30 days. I don't understand why there's a 30-day window there. You stop honoring the law. Then there's that buffer, and the farmers have stuff. Do we know why there's a 30-day?
I apologize.
Well,
Where that is on page 12?
Yeah, sorry,
Page
page
12.
12, line
Right.
20 and 21.
There
So
there was a reason why 30 days was there, like,
I'm thinking
I mean,
an OEM not honoring a MOU is a bit more troubling for the owner of equipment who says, John Deere will say, you have this MOU, so this is what we're abiding by. But the owner says that, well, you're not gonna send the codes I need, you're not gonna give the independent shop the codes they need to repair the equipment. That to me would be a more immediate need as opposed to MOU expiring, which would hopefully be a planned process, not just pulling the rug out from somebody, but immediate there or 30 days on both can be up for debate.
well, 30 days on the tail end. I mean, I wouldn't wanna run my equipment thinking that I was under, the obligation, the MOU. And something happens and you take it, you call and, well, was canceled that 25 days ago. So that's why we did, Rick and I discussed that and we thought it could be,
Protects the owner, actually.
yeah. Well, protects everybody.
Yeah.
If you know where you are. Yeah.
So what should be so 30 days?
Yep.
Leave that there?
I don't know why you would want a 30-day window in which an owner of equipment could.
The first 30?
Yeah.
We even talked about that one.
May not have. There's a lot to talk about this morning.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't like having a hiccup there.
the original shall be.
I mean, Senator Ritter makes a good point. Like, it's a little bit maybe not clear why it's different.
It should read
They should be.
Would you shorten that? Shall be required to comply with all provisions of that and all.
Immediately,
Oh,
if
It
upon probation.
allows them a little time to get geared up, maybe, but this bill doesn't start until what?
Yeah, so the last part, the effective date, January 1st, 2026, which it was January 1st, 2025.
Mhm.
There's suggestion to be January 1st, 2027. So this is kind of in the middle, I guess. Of this.
Yeah, I don't agree with that date either, but I'm not there yet. I'm still trying to figure out why we would stick an owner with something they can't repair for 30 days because their memorandum of understanding has been withdrawn without their knowledge, for example, or canceled by the vendor, and all of a sudden they're left in the lurch for 30 days, and it's haying season, and they can't do anything because the vendor doesn't have to apply for 30 days with supplying the stuff they need.
If this is pushed out for a year or so, they should have all kinds of time to get geared up anyway. So you might not need the 30 days.
I think we're talking about two different things.
Or-
I think we're talking about two different things. The effective date, to me, can be much sooner because we already have MOUs that seem to be working, we're told. So I don't know why we couldn't have this effective July 1st of this year. We've got manufacturers who are saying they can do this. They want to do this. They want to be good vendors to their customers. So I don't know why they would be pushing to have this.
So
Put off
if
for
it's
several
working all
years.
so good,
Why are we waiting
what
to make this
does it
effective?
matter what the date is if it's already working? I mean, we could make it 30. Sorry.
What we're told is that it's working well, and I think what we're hearing from owners is it's not working well, so we need a guarantee that they can repair stuff from every vendor, not just the MOU vendors. And the sooner this takes effect, the more assurance an owner of equipment will have that they can repair what they need to repair sooner.
And I'll say not every OEM has an MOU, right? It's like
Right.
80%, I don't know if the latest number, but most major manufacturers have these MOUs, but it's not everybody. So, if you have some off-brand, I don't know which brands don't have these MOUs with the American Farm Bureau Federation, but yeah, that would make the bill quite important. So I think you
Well,
want to make
maybe
sure.
we could put in there, this chapter, I mean, we've got it moved down. And the date, so we could, when this act takes effect, maybe, they'd have to honor.
Like you mean upon passage?
Yeah.
I'm fine with it.
The only thing I'm thinking for the 20% that don't have it, they may need time to come up with customer tools and that kind of thing to make it work. For the 80% or whatever that number is, that we're in, they
That we're doing this, right? We've heard it's a slippery slope. And if you do ag, you'll do iPhones next. I mean, I think manufacturers are very aware, especially those who are not part of an MOU. This is coming down the pike, and if they are willing to stay in the game, they need to be on top of this. And they have their diagrams already in their software that they're sharing with their independent repair guys. Their authorized dealers have all this stuff, so I think it's probably just a matter of that turnkey, like, okay, now the floodgates open and more people are gonna be calling us for this stuff, but it's not necessarily have it that's ready. And again, they're paying attention. This is the environment they play in, right? They've chosen until now maybe not to put out an MOU, but that's a conscious decision on their part as like a competitor in the marketplace. I don't know that we need to cater to their inability or not willingness to offer this to folks. I think the whole point of this law is to say to people, okay, whether or not you sign an MOU with your customers, this is the environment we're playing in now. People need to be able to repair their stuff, and they need to repair their stuff in a timely manner, and Hospital Borough was one of those. I haven't joined an MOU yet, right? And the woman who has her chainsaws has to buy old ones because she can't get the information she needs to repair a new one. And so I think these manufacturers really do need to be sooner than later encouraged to either sign MOUs or avail up like this. Because time's fleeting.
Brian,
So, Mr. Chair, I don't know what you're thinking, but maybe because of the timing and some of the complexity and some of the questions, I don't know if this bill makes it this year, or maybe it's looked at over the summer in a way. I don't know. There seems like there's, you need to take that as is it your broker? Stockbroker? Or Anita?
I think it was Bill Red.
So I was saying, Mr. Chair, maybe this doesn't make it this year. Maybe it turns into a study. I don't know. I just, there seems like there's a lot of complexity out there, but I just throw that out as another.
Well, I
background.
mean, that's a possibility, but I
I'm just, yeah, you're the chair.
I doubt if that will happen.
Okay.
Because the other body is all gung ho. I mean,
Yeah.
these poor guys, they can't get their tractors fixed. And, you know, they broke down all over the world and it's migrated into the United States and they can't get repaired. But, you know, the health looked at this pretty differently than. And I had a brand new $250,000 tractor on my son did and sit in Burlington for 30 days to get repaired and they worked on it every minute. If it had been up in our shop, us tinkering on it, it'd probably still be sitting there. I mean, you've gotta have some trained individuals to work on this new equipment and this. But anyways, the only thing I can say on that part that you raised us, we must have the date out away so that upon passage, then, and the date is moved out a bit, they should have all kinds of time, because then they know that we actually have passed a bill. I mean, I haven't got a clue whether this will pass or not, but I would expect it will. And if I was a manufacturer, don't worry, they know a lot more than I know. So they would have time to get geared up to service with owners and leasees and be ready when it comes. So,
Didn't we hear testimony that Colorado or somebody already passed this? I mean, this manufacturer should already be doing this.
Yeah, Colorado has a general right to repair. There's a few states that have an agricultural right to repair.
Okay, so this is not news to anybody. They're already doing this in some states. So this is just turning on the Vermont switch. This is not passing.
It's still, yeah,
Something new. It's just, now you're gonna have Vermonters calling you. So I just wanna make sure we have that perspective. This is not something Vermont's out front of, thank goodness. Somebody else has already done it, right?
yeah, we've been first.
Well, I'm not gonna think about that. But I just wanna right size the date. If we started it tomorrow, these manufacturers should be able to turn on the Vermont switch because they're already doing it for a number of other states, is my understanding.
Yeah.
So I
That's a committee on doing on the 30-day deal.
Oh,
oh, now we're back to 30.
Well, we haven't decided, I don't think. You're the one that's taking the notes.
Yeah, well,
I don't think we,
I wanted effective on passage, but that's just me.
I'm fine with the 30 days, I guess. I thought we were talking about the time.
I mean,
when,
with what you're proposing here personally.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't my wheelbarrow. I mean, again, I'm not hearing from constituents. I've been pretty clear. This is, I'm fine moving in this direction, and following the chair, in this, I think I was pretty comfortable, to be honest, with the memorandum of agreement. So,
we would, well, if we put 30 days upon that, we pass it, and then if we keep the end date, as long as it isn't June 30th of 24, they would have plenty of time to get organized anyways, because if we put 30 upon passage back there with the 30 days.
so you want this bill to take effect on passage and then the terms
That
begin
term,
30 days after passage. Upon 30 days past the bill, the act takes it, I mean, I can word this better than speaking now, but to make sure I get the right language in.
I don't get what you, because So the effective date here is, January 1st, 2026.
Right.
Are you talking about moving the effective date up?
On this, that
That's
within 30 days. Well, I guess if that wouldn't be right, we'd have to just take out the 30 days and put it upon. Upon not passage,
Oh,
it would be upon effective date of the bill.
let me see if I can.
Right, right.
So you're concerned about just this last F, subsection F. You're concerned this section should take effect sooner than the rest of the bill. Is that correct?
No,
Okay. Not correct, not correct.
but to solve Irene's issue. If it takes effect. What, in 26,
Right.
then it would take 30 more days.
Oh, I see.
So we don't wanna do that, we want it to take effect on passage, because they've already got a year to get ready for
Oh, not on passage, but on the 2026 date.
it. Yeah,
Keep it as the 2026, not on pass. So it wouldn't happen this year, it'd happen 2026.
so it takes effect upon passage, not 30 days after.
Well, but
It was
this,
on the effective date, it would take effect on January 1, 2026. Yeah. Okay.
but the issue is that, not to add complexity or confusion, because this withdrawal could happen in any time in 2027, 2028. So you need to have some kind of timeline, either 30 days or immediately, when that MOU is withdrawn. Once this bill takes effect, whenever that is, right, you gotta have some type of timeline for how quickly this bill applies to manufacturers that have withdrawn an MOU. They should both be 30, they should be immediately.
Upon passage, why wouldn't that work?
Well, because at some point, that's not gonna matter, right? At some point, the bill's gonna be in effect, right? And you want to have some kind of timeline for the owner, for the manufacturer to be subject to this act. So it's either upon MOU being rescinded, it's either immediately or there's some number of days that they must adhere to the bill.
Brian, did you have any idea on, do you need lead time? If the effective date of the bill is, out or late?
So I think what I hear, we're talking about two different things. One is if the MOU lapses or the manufacturer rescinds it. And secondly, the effective date of the entire bill.
Yeah.
I would make the argument that the effective date of the entire bill should be pushed to 2027. And I'll kind of explain more maybe when I go through the bill what, and it's not for those who have an MOU already. It's for the ones who perhaps don't and are, in many cases, niche market producers. And I hear that the statement that Colorado already has one, but they also have very different agricultural infrastructure. It's not the same equipment that we sell here in Vermont. And so some of our manufacturers are not aware, or, they just don't involve themselves in the lobbying efforts. You'll notice, that the larger dealers have come in and spoken to you, but we have smaller dealers and the independent repair facilities. There's people that just are not aware of what's going on in Vermont, let alone what happened in Colorado. And so I think there's very strong rationale for a 2027 effective date. As far as the 30 days on the MOUs, our purpose of the MOU, that it does have a process, a grievance process. And I'd really like to see us enforce the grievance process as opposed to go to courts immediately. And that
Yeah.
is my preference.
Okay.
Yeah, and we've already, I mean, tentatively employed them. Got it out to January 1 of 26, so, you know, that's a year and a half. And, but we're gonna have to negotiate with the House, so that date may change to a shorter, because they may have had upon passage, the whole bill takes effect. What they have,
January 2025.
yeah, so we gotta, you know, an extra year there to, that we may have to argue to be able to, you know, keep it that way, or they aren't just gonna accept it. So anyway, we'll get Brian up next and we'll try to figure out,
Be helpful to some clarifying stuff.
if we still got another bill, we got. Anything else?
So we didn't make a choice on that, yeah. is what
We're
you're
gonna hear from Brian first and then decide.
Yeah, we'll hear from, he has to deal with this stuff every day, or will have. So, welcome, Brian.
Morning.
Morning.
See if I can get myself organized. I had so many versions of this bill
Well,
I've been trying to follow.
there's only one from the town, so. We've been working.
I know you have.
I don't know if it's
Appreciate
good or
it.
bad, but we've been working.
I don't know. If you have accepted some of these changes, if you want to hear my comments on them. Some of your changes, I think, and I just wonder because you talk about negotiating with the House and, I would say that if it reverted to the House, bill, that really, it's not a good bill for Vermont. It's detrimental to the infrastructure that we've worked so hard to build. This, at least, is a fair bill.
Well,
We'll go on record saying, I just don't feel like there's a need for this. Because we're working through this diligently, developing MOUs with affected manufacturers that have that technology. As council pointed out, about 80% are covered so far. And that's 80% of the market sales, but that doesn't mean 80% of the manufacturers. Because John Deere, Kubota, New Holland, some Case IH, they're much larger manufacturers, much greater resources, and certainly sell the majority into the majority of the market. The manufacturers that I was talking about that are more niche market, some of those are European manufacturers. They don't have presence here in the States. We import the equipment. And for them to be subject to Vermont statutes, that's something they're gonna have to work through. Most of them are members of the manufacturer association and will understand through the process of communication back through that they have an obligation if they're going to sell within the state. Some of them may decide not to sell within that state.
these are maybe small tractors and, or are there big?
Well, more small equipment or precision type equipment. It's not going to apply to just mechanical equipment. We're talking really equipment that has higher technology that will be probably people. That's why, especially if you need to be able to give to the House, I would say, I would ask you to start with an effective date of 2027. And then maybe compromise at 2026, but I just don't see it as being reasonable to expect these manufacturers to develop a conduit to other repair facilities in, we're talking 6 months. So I think that's asking too much. I know we talked about the findings. And I think that they drive the rationale for the bill. And so making sure that findings are indeed factual is for me very critical. I appreciate the reworking some of the findings because I think that there was some of those that had a lot of artistic license. And this is better.
Well, we tried to. Half the bills, fine.
I was just looking at it from our.
You gotta set the landscape, right?
It does, and some of that, is, I'll give you an example. The 6 and 7, through the workforce and geographic constraints and, critical workforce shortages. Those are things that are, or 7 and 8, 8, the need for more accessible and affordable repair options is felt more acutely among specific actors. I'm not so sure that that's actually factual. Many of the most rural areas have the larger farms and have a greater focus on access and support. It may, I just don't think that there's a study that you can actually point to that makes that factual.
Well, we actually had testimony that most of our dealers are within 35 miles or something of the farm community.
Right, but in the greater farm communities.
So we're pretty, geographically, we're in pretty good shape here.
It's a lot different than some of the bigger states, where, maybe a larger footprint for one dealership, but they're not as close together because of the terrain and just the way that we're laid out in Vermont. Our dealerships tend to be a little smaller than the other states, but more proliferated throughout those agricultural communities.
Well, we as a committee like short our bills, so we could shorten that size.
I'll leave that to you.
Page.
Go ahead, Brian.
Some of this, I appreciate again, the clarification of existing federal regulations, on number 12B. So getting to, the, on B, in the definitions. Paragraph 4,
Page 6.
I believe page 6.
Forestry equipment.
Yes, and the reason for pulling out that at the end, it really needs to stay out because that could expand the scope of the bill by leaving what the structured language into that, because it talks about constructing, and you use construction equipment on on farms and in forestry to build roads and stuff. And so the minute you include equipment that's in construction, you expand the scope of this bill. And so that's why we asked to have that struck, and you've agreed to leave it struck. I know that that there is a request to put that back in the bill. I think you will have testimony tomorrow.
I don't know. So number 4,
Is okay, the way it is.
that's what.
So the way you have modified it, I know you have testimony tomorrow from the opposing side, and I think that they had asked, the comments that I have that they have provided is that they would like to have that reinserted, and I would tell you that that's critical that it not. On number 5, you've taken out the physical and made it operated in. I wonder if there's a way to clarify that they're physically operating in, that such that they don't have to have a domicile or a business, but they have to be here working. So that we're not opening this up to over the internet type work.
So an independent repair means a person.
We had asked to have a physical retail or business location. And you've returned it this morning to operating in.
Within,
And I'm not sure that doesn't open it up to someone who's an internet provider.
Well, do you want a clause that just says excluding the internet or something like that? I mean, let's be specific about that, because physically operating again alludes to maybe they have a storefront, maybe they don't, leaves it open on interpretation. If you're trying to exclude the internet, let's say that.
Yes.
Operating the state except via the web, or I don't know.
see, Rick.
Yeah.
Didn't we talk about that?
Not about internet providers, but we talked about how it could be a New Hampshire company.
Yeah. See, if you buy you should be here in Vermont, because we don't have any jurisdiction over our neighbors. And so we wanted to make sure that you were a Vermont resident, Vermont, but to get it along the Connecticut River, you have people chasing back and forth that maybe an independent repairman from New Hampshire does repair work along the river for some of those farmers. I thought that's what we were trying to.
I think we were.
I think that's what you're trying to get to, and I just want to make sure we don't expand it such that it could be interpreted for.
John Jones from Ohio.
From Ohio.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
correct.
no, we,
So I don't know if there's some language we could include that would make it very clear that they have to be physically operating within Vermont. They don't have to have a storefront, but they have to actually be here.
to work on the equipment.
Because as somebody who's coming across from New Hampshire is working on their equipment in Vermont. If they take their equipment to New Hampshire, I'm not sure if this has applies, because now they're under New Hampshire law.
So hypothetically, if you sell me a tractor and I live over and across the bridge in New Hampshire and it breaks down on me, I'm sure you go fix it. Or if the guy comes and can buy parts from you. But if I don't know what we'd put in there for wording, that would be, heck with a memorandum of understanding, that would just be between me and you as a customer and a dealer. But I would think you would go over and
We do, and they would also have the protections of the memorandum of understanding for those that are already accepted, but I want to make sure that we're not obligated to sell to somebody in California the pools that but by this, if they were contacting us, I don't know if that's considered operating. I just want to clarify what's operating mean. And
So in order to be you have to be using or have purchased a product in Vermont, right? That's the first thing. So if you purchase it in California and you live in California.
does it say that in?
Yeah, it does. It does eventually narrow that scope to just those people. We'll get to that, I think, at some point here. And I'll point that out. If you want to exclude internet providers, you also want to make sure that there could be someone that just has an internet website that does operate in Vermont, and this person can't afford, I don't know, like a storefront, right? They just has his house with a barn, but he has a website and he services Vermont farms. So I'd be careful excluding. I get the intent here. I'd be careful excluding internet providers just because they're on the internet. They could be Vermont. So there could be a way actually to think about it, how to word that to exclude the people that shouldn't be included.
See, you must do a dealer in New York State doesn't have the power, and you have to have it. You can overnight it to that dealer. I don't know, that's probably not an internet sale, but it's a direct sale to, or a swap. I don't know how you.
That would be a transfer to that dealer. We actually have a system where you can see where that part, who's got the part, and then you can reach out to them and request it. But I'm just concerned as far as making sure that it's very clear who this applies to.
Yeah.
So I don't have the solution on that, so I hadn't had really an opportunity to think about it. I liked what we had. But I understand what your concern is as far as somebody coming across from New Hampshire or Massachusetts along those border towns and doing work in Vermont and still being able to have access to that. I think as long as they're in Vermont, that they would have access to everything.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, if they come over to, you got a dealership over there on 14 or something. Well, if they come over there to work on somebody's tractor, they ought to be able to go to your shop and that you sold the tractor to, they ought to be able to go and get parts.
by this,
And that's what the intention here is to allow that.
okay.
In New Hampshire, their dealerships are kind of quite a ways apart from what I understand. Some of
There's very few dealerships in New Hampshire left that have an agricultural footprint.
Yeah.
A lot of them with the construction and with just general equipment. But we do more business in New Hampshire all the time with the few larger farms that are left there because they have to come to Vermont where there is
still some dealerships.
there's some dealerships that,
That hard.
yeah.
So I,
Yeah, question. I'm just reading online here that, for a lot of reasons, we should keep in mind that California has a Right to Repair Act about agriculture that starts July 1st of 2024. California is a huge market. So anybody who buys any equipment or sells any type of equipment is gonna be gearing up to supply this information to California customers, right? California is one of the biggest economies in the world. So that also refers to the effective date, but in this respect, like if I had a piece of equipment and I couldn't find someone who's open or available, I might be calling California. And if they're giving me help over the phone, they're sending me a diagram over the phone, they are operating this state via the web. And so that not only behoves us, I think, to move our effective date up to match theirs, but it also reminds me that internet commerce is a thing. And to exclude someone from California that might have information I need to repair my equipment may be unnecessarily confining to an owner of equipment who could otherwise find that information if the Vermont dealer were open or had an MOU or whatever with us, but that California law shouldn't preclude them sharing information with me if I'm willing to pay for it.
I think we're talking about two different things.
Okay.
So, Vermont statute will have no authority over a California dealership. They can provide as much as they want to somebody in Vermont.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that they shouldn't be able to provide
Okay.
them. This oversees what us dealers within Vermont have an obligation to provide, and I don't want to have to provide to somebody who I don't know, may not trust, and they're only contacting me through the internet. I'm not gonna sell them the tools because I have no ability to provide oversight. The way it's stated, it would appear like I have to sell them and provide everything to them.
But, well, that's not our intention.
Right.
It's,
Understood it, so it's not what providing service to Vermont farms and foresters that I'm talking about. It's
Okay.
our obligation as a dealer body within Vermont. And I think a lot of this applies to not just the manufacturers, but it applies to the obligation of dealers, which is why we've been very involved, because
Right.
we want to make sure we can hit the mark.
So I'm wondering whether we should just put back the language that says means a person with a physical retail or business location operating in this state.
Or physically operating. I mean, we're okay with a guy who comes across in a truck. He's got a service vehicle. And he's, because I think this is what you're talking about. He's legitimately operating within Vermont. And
did
That-
that remove that?
So, but this legitimately isn't as good a word as physically operating,
physically operating, yes, thank you.
but then physically might imply storefront, so we might wanna say physically operating, not necessarily storefront.
So we put physically in there, person.
I think it's a
physically
step in the right
operating.
direction.
Doing it physically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good, Irene?
I don't know, I wanna clarify that it's not necessarily a storefront, cause I don't want physical if we have that brick and mortar, right? I mean, that could be open interpretation,
We can do a physically including storefront, shop, like you could do a physically, use the word physically and then kind of define what that means.
not necessarily a storefront, is what I want to say.
Right, but you could say whatever else says storefront you want to be
So
included.
that would include,
As with the truck.
if I have, I'm a farm equipment dealership in upstate New York. And, you bought your tractor in upstate New York in, because a lot of people in Franklin County go across the line. And they send, I got tractor problems, they send a truck over. They're physically, working on the tractor on my farm. To diagnose the problem and do that. This would cover it.
That's a great example, and that's the language that I would suggest is acceptable for everybody, because if they're going to operate it within Vermont, they should know what Vermont laws are and abide by whatever state.
You buy the tractor, but they don't have a service truck and they don't come over here, this would not apply.
Correct.
So you wanna put that in, right?
Can you repeat, I was in an email, can you repeat, Senator Westman?
Pretty simple.
Yeah.
My family bought tractors in upstate New York because, yeah, if they have a service truck that comes over and physically goes to the farm to diagnose the problem and work on a piece of equipment, this applies to them. If they sell it, but they don't come into Vermont with a service truck, this doesn't apply.
So
They're an owner of the equipment, right? Not an independent repair provider, is that the?
No, they sold something to the farm. They've sold something to someone. They produce a physical
Right.
presence within the state if they send a service truck over.
So the physical was in there.
But we're talking about
physically
it,
operating.
right, but we're talking about independent repair providers. These are not dealers, these are not authorized, these are usually small shops, right? So that's this specific definition. So I think I understand.
Well, it can
The
be,
concern is-
it can be a small shop that comes over and works, or it
Right.
could be, a dealership that comes over. My experience has only been the dealerships coming across the lake.
But they're physically operating
Right.
in Vermont. So-
Right, by driving over, and
And before.
I think I can make it work.
Yeah. Okay.
Following that, paragraph 7, or I'm sorry, 8. Talked about, what an owner means, and, leases was added back in. I understand the intent, so, what would be, I think, very critical to us is to have language that that lease agreements can differ, and so we ought to have limitations added in further on it, because sometimes a lease agreement may specify certain requirements in repair. A lot of times, manufacturer is still the owner of, or whoever is leasing them the equipment is still the owner of that equipment, is going to take it back at the end and is guaranteed a certain residual. And so not all leases, but some leases will say that you have to have these things done at your dealership. And so, I think we just have to make sure that there's some exclusionary language that puts limitations on what, that doesn't interfere with the lease language. This doesn't overstep language that's included in a lease.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So do you want something like notwithstanding an agreement between a leaser and a lessor or lessee or whatever the terms are, that an owner would be summoning from services?
I think there was some language,
I think on page 11.
page 11, that
You could put something in there, I think, that would cover the particular,
how about
Oh, there we go. Yeah, it's a limitation here.
this act does not alter the terms of any agreement between an owner and any person related to lease and warranty terms for agricultural equipment.
yeah.
That seems to take care of it. So yeah, I'm not worried about this.
Okay with that?
Yep. I can get that right.
I can provide that to you if you don't have that.
Yeah, you want to use that language. And
I think it's already here.
It's already.
It's already.
that applies to authorized repair providers.
It's already here.
Is it in the new?
It's on page 11.
Page 11.
It's really helpful.
That language has been there.
Yeah.
4054B.
Yeah, it is this.
That's perfect. It's already there.
Where is it?
Under limitations.
But that doesn't apply to leases.
That doesn't talk
I think
about
he's talking about
leases.
something else.
I'm talking about specifically leases, and I can provide you what I just gave the
Yes.
committee, and maybe you can look and see if it fits in there.
They will get that to Rick.
That's, no, yes, if you're okay with what I. Yeah. I said I was going to cover a question that you had, Senator Renner. Do you remember what that question was?
That's a lot.
It was somewhere in the table right here,
What page are we on?
page 8.
Yeah, I asked about reasonable cost and that's character.
Okay, we
I
got
think
that.
that.
Was there another question prior to that?
One thing I
We're
don't
good.
do is keep track of our questions.
Challenge.
So I'm in the industry and I'm pretty active in the industry and it's interesting. I was not even aware of California statutes that's supposed to be going into effect. So that just would kind of,
But you're not a manufacturer, are you? I don't know if you introduced
I'm
yourself.
not a
at the beginning.
manufacturer. No, I'm a dealer in Vermont.
Okay.
Brian Carpenter, I'm ownership,
Okay.
primary owner of Champlain Valley.
It's on my sheet, I just didn't know if you said it for the video, okay.
But, even California has a lot of very specialty equipment. And it's not necessarily the same as here as well. I've just out there touring, it's a couple of weeks touring all the wineries and, pretty amazing. The different equipment that they use. We don't see, our wineries use different equipment. It's size, if they're using automated grape pickers. So they're great harvesters or something to watch, but it just kind of points out to me how different even the coasts are.
It's a long ways across, here to there. So other questions, section?
Oh, I know what the question that you had was. It was on the repair and the need to, you were using the seatbelt, for an example.
Yeah.
Right.
And it has to do with, we're not saying you can't physically disassemble something. And you have the tools necessary to physically disassemble it. It's to go in and eliminate to bypass any safety notifications that would not allow you to say, drive the tractor until it's been until you've got your seatbelt on, if that's what it is, or, park brake on, you can't start it without the brake on. And so there is nothing in what we're asking that would prohibit shops from being able to do all of the repairs, because that's in the language prior to this that we have to provide, the manufacturers have to provide, in many cases, it'd be through the dealers, the tools to affect all repairs, which then would provide them the ability to do the complete repair. The argument that the manufacturers are saying is that if you require them to provide the ability to bypass safety or emissions systems, they have no way to ensure clients are returning it to that. And really, we're then talking about not the right to repair, but the right to modify.
Yeah.
And so that was the intent of that language, and I believe it needs to stay in the way it's written. Dealers do not have the ability to do that either. We don't need to do that. And there's tremendous liability potential if we start opening it up to that.
So I see language in 11 that was added, which I like. It says restore the product to its original specifications.
Exactly.
So that's helpful.
So if you can bring it back to original specifications,
Then you're okay.
then
just
you
gonna
have
take
everything
something-
necessary to make that repair and bring it. But not to modify it and exceed the original specifications, which could be something to do with tuning the fuel and bypassing emissions. Okay.
Thank you.
That was the question. There was something, a dangling
Thank you.
Chad here. I think there was some questions about manufacturers having a licensor on their product, and even the dealers have that and have to get the updates, and that's a control that they put in place so that they have some oversight on what's being done. I think if dealers can deal with it that way, that independent repair providers can also fine with it. agreed with the indemnity on repair, that's good. Because oftentimes we'll see something that has been modified or somebody's tried to do a repair on. And if it's done under warranty, then we can't get the warranty coverage for it because it was. But you've addressed that in this, that does not make that a warrantable repair. The question on the immediately and the 30 days goes back to what I was talking about, when you were in it, as far as whether we're going to enforce and ensure that the MOU process stays in place and continues to work. And if we bypass the grievance process, I worry that the MOUs will just be discarded. I think those are a great good faith effort, and that keeps us out of the courtroom. And a 30-day process of grievance to provide that opportunity, I think is reasonable. The courts aren't going to process anything quicker than 30 days, so it just
3 years.
it may provide just enough of a window to keep things out of the court and allow it to go through this due process. So I ask you to consider the 30 days. And then, as I argued on the 2027 effective date, there are some OEMs that will have to build customer facing tools. And I'll give you an example. We just sold a very high precision planter. We sell maybe one every 3 or 4 years. But it'll plant everything from small carrot seed all the way up to a bean seed. And there's one planter. They're very, very expensive, but and it needs a computer to dial into it and everything. And so I'm guessing that they do not have a customer facing tool yet. These are smaller manufacturers, and they just don't have the same resources as the ones who have already developed the MOUs. And I think it would be a disservice to our ability to have customer satisfaction and provide that if all of a sudden they find out that they are in court for something that they were never really given time. As a aside, I know that EPA was given out of the over the road manufacturers till 2027 to nothing on it. Similar type of federal legislation. So I think 2037 is
It is 2021, the update should come. So we're on road.
So what are these manufacturers gonna do when somebody from California says, I need help? Are they gonna provide that help? Or are they going to just wait to be taken forward? It doesn't make sense to me that somebody the size of California can require right to repair, and little Vermont is saying, can't do this yet. That just logically doesn't work.
I understand. Little old Vermont is little old Vermont. We have less population and less farming in the entire state than they have in one county. And I think giving them an opportunity to be the hammer and not tie up Vermont is maybe is a prudent path. If I was legislating, I would just not want to be the leading edge of the sword on this particular issue.
Right, now we're working with California. If we set our effective date July 1st of this year, we would be right in sync with a very big agricultural entity, and anybody who's selling to them would understand that they need to provide diagrams, they need to provide software codes, whatever it is that a California farmer might want. We also are asking that we would have that access to. I don't know that that's too much.
The diagrams, the tools, that is all available. The software in a package that's exportable to be purchased, it's probably not available for everybody. Vermont is in closer to Connecticut and New York, who have right to repair legislation that both exempted agriculture. So Uh, the only one that I'm aware of that's in effect right now is California, or not California, it's Colorado. The California one is one that I haven't even seen the bill on, so I don't know what they're looking for, and it's very late in our legislative session to go back and craft it so that it pairs with them. But I just would reiterate that I think there's very large farmers out there, and if something is to be made available, it will be available for the entire US, just like it. So let them be the ones that force it.
Apparently they haven't. So, I mean, if you want to pay attention to California, California passed this in October of 2023, so that's already almost a year that anybody's manufacturing anything. And again, California probably debated this for a while. It didn't just pass overnight last October. So again, I think manufacturers in a competitive environment, I'll give them credit. They're looking out for this stuff. They understand the stew that they're playing in. I don't know why they would not be working furiously, paying software developers overtime to develop this stuff so that they are ready when California throws the switch on July 1st, and why Vermont would hesitate and say, well, California, a manufacturer's a manufacturer. If they want to play in the game, they're making this happen, right? I want to give them credit. This is what you do when you're in a competitive, maybe we don't work like this in the legislature, but when you're in a competitive industry, you hire whoever you have to do so that on July 1st, you are ready with software diagrams. I don't know. I'm just willing to give these manufacturers a lot more credit, I guess, maybe than they deserve.
But Mr. Carpenter, may I just clarify, does California right to repair for ag?
It says it is.
Now,
It says it is on here.
I'm sorry?
it's just for appliances.
For
electronics.
appliances, okay, I just wanted to
They,
clarify.
they introduced
I
one
thought,
under, but,
But it hasn't passed, I just wanted, yeah,
Okay.
Colorado had.
Thank you.
no, I appreciate it.
I raised my hand, I was.
Okay. No, that's fine, that's fine.
Yeah,
It's appliances, electronics, ag equipment is included, like New York's also they excluded, so Colorado has the right to
Okay,
repair
so
ag
Colorado
equipment.
already has.
Colorado's had, yes.
For how long?
They've had it, it's been a year, it may have taken effect this year, but it passed it over a year ago.
All right, so I stand corrected. So Colorado's been working on this for
so
years.
California, I just wanna clarify.
Thank you.
Does not have an ag, right to repair.
Thank you.
No, they fixed the.
Okay,
It's
so
the,
It's
the-
Colorado
It's
that
the
does.
Colorado,
Thank you. I
yeah,
stand
yeah. No
corrected.
problem.
Colorado has
No
for
problem.
several years
No problem. I just
been
wanted to
talking about this, passed it. It's been in
Yeah.
effect now for,
Cause in
However long-
California,
It
we
just
know.
came into effect this year.
okay.
Colorado's the one that I was talking about earlier. That's the only one I'm aware of.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Colorado's a different landscape than Vermont. So goes California, probably a little bit closer. They have very broad. But so I would stand back on my principle that I really believe some of these manufacturers need reasonable time to accomplish what we're asking them to do.
Appreciate that. I would disagree.
Is that one of the yards on the date?
Well, it seems like that's where we're, unless Brian had other stuff.
So you're all set?
I'm all set, accepting that, the majority of what you went through today, asking for a couple modifications, especially on the implementation date and the clarification of who's covered by it and,
Operating in the state.
operating in the state.
Yes.
You like the 2027 date.
I really believe 2027 is important.
Rick, did you have any, questions, on the few changes that we talked about on the, in-state deal and that?
No, I'm gonna draft some about the physical operating, I'll draft that. You're gonna send me language with the leasing, you'll send me language about that. One question I had, the safety mechanisms, you had concerns that language was taken out. Were you satisfied with,
I wasn't sure. I couldn't find that in my
so it's
draft,
on page,
unfortunately, so.
kind of in the middle?
Okay, so, I think we're in pretty good shape. You're one of our bigger dealers here in Vermont. And you think you might be able to live with the way we all do things?
if we leave it the way, with a couple of alterations, we can live with it, Senator. And we really do appreciate you working with us. Our intent is to provide the best service we can to our customers, but also not to be overly litigated for something that's not fully within our control. Things like the ability to provide that service. Two of our stores have the most techs that we've ever had. We've been working over the last year, aggressively recruiting and training. We have a lot of connections with trade schools, but also just think that it's come full circle where maybe people are looking at the trades again.
Yeah.
Young people. And so we're very hopeful that that was a blip when everybody recognized there was a really unfortunate confluence of events when we not only had supply chain disruption, we had workforce disruption. And so it really highlighted some limitations, but we're working together. We're gonna get there.
Yeah, well, thank you for your time, Brian. And,
Can you take 5 minutes? Is it possible? 5 minute break or no?
yeah, we will, but we may have to work in their lunch.
You know me.
We got a job ahead of us.
Okay.
Michael will be right on, but why, thanks again.
Thanks.
And thanks, Rick. for your
Yeah,
time.
thanks, Rick.
And, we'll, try to